Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining me on today's webinar. My name is Daniel Ash. I'm actually a business development manager here at the UK, formerly a sales engineer. Some of you might be familiar with me, so I do come from a technical background and offer sort of pre and post sales services. So what we're going to be looking at today is obviously with the current situation going back into lockdown, obviously working from home is a necessity in this day and age. So what I'm really going to do is I'm going to cover 3 concrete cases, and you will see that the cases themselves in terms of the infrastructure is very similar, but as you increase from a small business to a small medium business to sort of like an enterprise level, the specification of the equipment increases, which is very important to understand. And then we're also going to cover off as well what is important. So what is important is if your internet is poor at home because of the excessive amount of usage, especially if you've got children at home isolating and things like that, what can be done to reduce this so that ultimately you can continue to function without them sort of limitations. So why do we install VPN connections for home? So there's a couple of reasons for this. It's being able to access company resources securely as though you're physically in the actual premise. So if you think about it, a lot of businesses will have servers in the company. They could be accessing financial software such as Sage, and obviously with financials and any sort of data protection act, so any CRMs, you need to sort of lock it down so that only people that are authorized to do so can access it. And this is one of the things to be able to do that when you're not physically in the location. And again, with phone systems as well, some people have phone systems installed and will need access to them at home. And again, for VPN connectivity, it's all about security, all about being able to access the information and the resources available in the business premise from home securely without it impacting the business and breaching any sort of regulations. So the different types of VPNs that we support, so you've got IPsec, L2TP, and SSL VPN. So SSL VPN is typically the most preferred method and is very easy to set up. The reason that it is preferred is that some ISPs do block VPN connectivity. So if you've ever gone to like a cyber cafe or to an airport, something like that, and tried accessing a VPN, which works when you're at home, and then all of a sudden it doesn't when you're out in these locations, that's usually because you're using something like L2TP or IPsec, and the ISP or the network you're connected to has restricted access to that. So the SSL VPN is free for Windows PC, so you'll download a client software through ourselves, install it, and it's free for Windows, but it does require a license key for Mac, unfortunately. So obviously you can access all our security training to bring you up to speed with all our security and VPN solutions that we offer. There are some handouts as well on this specific webinar that'll point you in the right directions of guiding you how to set it up, and a few other useful links as well. So please make sure you do download the handouts. So IPsec is typically the most secure type of VPN connectivity. This, however, does need licensing on a PC. With the client that we use, and typically speaking, as I say, is the most secure method. L2TP VPN, now going back a few years ago, L2TP used to be the most widely used one from what I can see. However, it isn't very secure, but it is native on pretty much all workstations. So using the built-in Windows VPN client, then you will be able to just add it on with no additional license, any additional software needing to be installed. So I've just had a question across: is the license for a Mac while using Zywall is still required? So yeah, the licensing for any of our USG, Zywall, or security platforms, the software itself that you install on the Mac is required to be licensed, and I believe that's something to do with having to publish it on the the Apple Store. So it is required to be charged on that. So let me go through the sort of the cases that we're going to do. So we're going to go through like a very small business. So this, typically speaking, is the owner, someone to do the accounts, a salesperson, a couple of technicians. Now, what you typically find is that everybody will be supplied with either a PC or a laptop. So if you've got a laptop, working from home isn't a problem because it's portable, you can take it home. With a PC, this can prove quite difficult, especially if the PC contains confidential data. Then it could be breaching your company regulations to actually take it out of the office. So there are different ways you can actually set this up, which I'll go through in a second. And a server containing all the company's files will be located at the physical company, and the accountant must connect to the administration servers located in the office. So the server that is at the office, let's say it's a Sage server, for instance. Now, typically speaking, the accountant will have a physical desktop PC and will be connected to the corporate network physically. When they go home, they might not be able to take their PC with them. So what you can do is you could set up a VPN connection on their laptop and use something like remote desktop, for instance, and allow a secure method to access their PC as though they're physically sat in front of it, but from a remote PC. So the laptop itself will actually show you the screen as though you're physically sat in the office. So everything will be there that you would be used to. So the typical layout would be you'd have a server in the actual premise, and then you'll have all the networking equipment, which then goes back to one of our security devices. So for this one, we've used the USG40, to which you can find the part codes for the actual unit, as well as the IPsec VPN license for the Windows client at the top of the screen. So typically speaking, what you'll have is you'll have multiple people from different locations, all working from home, all connecting over the internet, so using their traditional ISP at home. They would initiate a VPN connection, which will create a secure tunnel from the client's PC straight through to the server. Any information that's transferred during the time that VPN connection is established is all encrypted within a tunnel, so you can't get people like a man-in-the-middle attack or people trying to snoop your data, especially with it being confidential and subject to your business. So the equipment that we've used, as I said, is a USG40 on this. The capacity is sort of up to 10 users, 20 IPsec VPNs, so people connecting in remotely, and it also supports 5 SSL VPNs included, up to 15 with a license. This has probably changed slightly, and I'll go through this towards the end of it, because we did, during the last lockdown, actually increase the amount of SSL licenses to help people work from home without having to fork out loads of money. So the unit itself comes with a UTM license, so you can get antivirus, anti-spam, content filtering, and IDP. So being able to control the internet and protect your staff as well from potential viruses. So as I say, that typically speaking, that's a very small sort of case, and we're sort of moving up to now a small medium company. Again, the infrastructure itself is pretty much the same, but the hardware, as you increase the amount of people that's on it, it increases the hardware requirements. So this small company that we're going to do a case study on at the minute has about 50 people. All people have either a PC and laptop and can home work, and we've got up to like 40 VPN users. So the server is located at the office and it contains all documents and files. However, they do use some collaborative tools such as Teams or Skype for Business and things like that. Now, we all know from Teams and things like that, it's available outside of a VPN. So the VPN connection isn't actually required for Teams or Skype. However, to be able to access all the documents and files which are stored on a server inside the business, that is where the VPN is required. So again, the topology is the same. However, this time, rather than the USG 40, we're using the ATP 200. So the ATP 200 it ultimately is a bigger box, higher throughput, higher performance. The scenario is the same for the actual client. So they use either IPsec, SSL, or an L2TP VPN from a laptop using their home broadband, as I mentioned on the previous case. So as I've said, the ATP 200 is basically a bigger box. It'll allow up to 50 users, 40 IPsec VPNs, and 10 SSL VPN licenses included with that. So the security UTM side of the things with the ATP is structured slightly different. So you've only got the one license being a gold license, and it does come inclusive with a 1 year with this at the moment. And in that, you'll get the anti-spam, the antivirus, the content filtering, the IDP that you will get on the same as the USG. However, you also get like anti-botnet and sandboxing. So the anti-botnet is basically somebody's downloaded a file, incorporated some malicious software into it, repackaged it, and then distributed it on a non-official site. So as soon as you download it thinking it's a legitimate Adobe Reader, for instance, it could actually install some malicious software on your computer, and it could actually result in people being given access to your network unknowing to you. So the ATP can analyze this, detects it, and it stops it. Sandboxing now, but this is quite interesting because sandboxing is good because if for instance someone's developed a virus or some sort of malicious software for the first time, the ATP will pick this up and say, hang on a second, I don't recognize you. I don't know if you're good. I don't know if you're bad. So what it does is it runs it in a little bit of an virtual environment and actually emulates it, decides what it does, and then it categorizes it as being malicious or not. So again, being able to protect your customers and your business from these zero-day threats and people trying to sort of snoop and gather your data. So that's the sort of small medium business deployment using the ATP 200. So we're going to move into what's deemed a more enterprise sort of solution. So you're talking like a college of 100 teachers. We obviously know that education during these pandemics and that lot have been quite, the dynamics have changed quite a lot in terms of a lot of homeschooling, a lot of online classes and things like that. So this college has an administrative team that only has professional but fixed PCs. So they haven't got any laptops to take home with them. So again, being able to use a remote desktop over a secure connection would be the way to go from here, because it means they can access their PC securely on their personal laptop at home. So the 100 teachers, they again only have PCs and Windows or Mac. So again, same principle using remote desktop. The salespeople and the 2 technicians, however, they have laptops, so that's easy. You install the software, they can access everything they need to. All the resources are stored on a local server, so that these are files, this is registrations, anything to do with the school is stored on a localized server, so everything needs to be accessed over a VPN. And again, the topology is pretty much the same. Obviously, it bulks up in terms of the amount of teachers or administrative staff you've got onto it, and the internal network could probably be a lot bigger, but the principle is the same. You've got a server plugged into a firewall with internet access, and you've got staff members at home wanting to access them resources. So again, they use an SSL VPN primarily for this scenario, because it is, as I say, it is pretty secure. It's the easiest to set up, and there's no restriction of it being blocked by your ISP. So the equipment that we use for this, we use the USG 1100, which again is one of the higher end models. The capacity of this is up to 350 users. It's got 1,000 VPN IPsec tunnels that can be built on it, and it's got 250 SSL VPNs included, and you can license that up to 500. So again, looking at the equipment as we've gone through the different cases, you can see how the equipment increases the amount of users, the amount of VPN users, etc. And that is important to understand, especially when you're tailoring up a project or anything like that, is make sure you understand what their requirements are and what their capacity is going to be, and then that will allow you to select the correct product. And again, the USG series only comes with the antivirus, anti-spam, content filtering, and IDP. So what I've said about the sandboxing and the anti-botnet obviously doesn't come into it with the USGs, but it's something worth considering when you're speccing up any projects to see if the ATP is a better fit. So now we're sort of going to go through what is the, I know that mine has suffered, only been on 35 meg ADSL. I use more than that, and so does my daughter. So it becomes very difficult for me. So if your kids are at home, they're home learning, or they're doing a bit of gaming or streaming YouTube, Netflix, Disney Plus, or whatever to keep them occupied during the stages when they're at home self-isolating, we've got 2 parents wanting to work from home, both for different companies, and then we've got 2 children as well in this scenario to show you what can be done to reduce this. So 1 broadband line for 4 people, depending on what you've got. So if you've got fiber to the premise and you've got like a 500 meg line or something like that, not a problem. But if you're in my situation with 35 meg, then you start having issues such as interrupted meetings, file transfers take a lot longer. For your kids' point of view, poor gaming experience that could cause them to be upset, cause them to stress you out and start getting under your feet while you're trying to work. So again, we need to really have a look what we can do in regards to this. So the typical setup would be you'd have an ISP router, whether that be TalkTalk, Sky, BT, Virgin, whatever. You'll have an ISP router at home which is wireless capable, and it'll provide you also a cable connection. So in this scenario, we've got two children. We've got one streaming on the tablet wirelessly. We've got one child gaming either on a PC or a console. Then we've got the two parents trying to work and obviously continue to function and earn money. So typically speaking, what they're trying to access, so the kids are accessing YouTube, PlayStation Network, Xbox, Netflix, or any of the other streaming services or anything that they use. The parents, however, aren't trying to access them specific resources. They're looking at connecting to a USG or a firewall at their work premise. And again, they're working at two different places. So what happens when ultimately you start running out of bandwidth? What will happen is it'll actually start dropping the streams, it'll drop your VPN connection, which will stop file transfers, it'll kick you out of meetings, and ultimately it causes you a massive headache and ultimately loses productivity for your company as well. So one thing that we need to look at doing is what can we do? So what I've done for this scenario is I've introduced a Zyxel LTE 3301 Plus. So the LTE 3301 Plus is a router which supports a SIM card. So you can go get a SIM card from a provider, like I've got one from 3 with unlimited data as a backup. And what you can do is you can implement that, get the parents connected to that. They can continue to work uninterrupted by what the kids are doing. So in essence, if the kids are doing something and they start running into issues and they're getting lack of bandwidth, the parents, however, are unaffected whatsoever. So it means that at least you can continue to work. The children, unfortunately, are going to have to stagger their internet usage based on the requirements. So as you can see, data flow is absolutely fine for the parents. As I say, the reason that I've introduced this unit is it's quite a nice little unit. It can offer you up to 300 meg down, 500 meg up on the LTE services using 2G or 3G. It's got Wi-Fi AC in it, so Wi-Fi 5 built into it. And it can also work in a bridge mode as well, so it can just sort of not act as a router and can get plugged into potentially some other infrastructure you might have in place. However, what you can do is you can actually have a failover LTE to WAN Ethernet. So if you've got your ISP router, you can have it plugged into one of the ports in the back of this router, and basically say, look, connectivity check it. If this router goes down or we start running into issues with this router, I want to fail over to LTE. Therefore, maintain an internet connection. This can all be done on this. And you can also, with it being an internal LTE unit, sometimes your signal can be a bit naff when you're inside, depending on the wall structures and things like that. So you've got the optional of getting with external antennas, you can actually extend them with sort of antenna cables as well. So being able to mount them in a different location. And it is key to know that Zyxel as a company don't offer SIM cards, so you would have to look at a cellular provider, as I say, like 3, Virgin, Vodafone, EE, or any of the SIM card cellular network providers. So having a look a little bit at the unit, so I've obviously gone through all the actual specifications, but this shows you a bit of a diagram as to how it connects. So you can see how it's connected into the ISP router, which could be provided from BT, Sky, TalkTalk, and then the LTE 3301 Plus would act as your router for all your devices. Everybody would connect to that, and then you'll determine what you want to do, whether or not you want to go out through the landline or you want to go out through LTE. You have the ability to choose this within inside the software. And then if you have a look at the actual unit at the back, you'll see that you can put in a micro SIM card. It's got a USB port in there as well, so you can plug in a USB external hard drive and do file sharing through it. And then you've got the gigabit ports at the back so that you can plug in a computer, plug in your skyboxes, etc. So that really goes through a bit of a solution in regards to the 3 cases that I've mentioned, and also what you can be done if you're looking into if you're getting restricted bandwidth due to the usage. So that really concludes that. I can see a few questions have come through, so I'm just going to address them. So Jack, yeah, I can see obviously that particular unit I showed you wasn't 4G, so for your element that might not be useful. However, we do have quite a few different 4G routers out there available, but this is one of the ones that can be quickly implemented into your home network with the LAN port and the automatic failover, just to provide that little bit of resilience during these times. But if you're looking for a solid 4G unit like me, as I've stated, I've got a 35 meg line. I need more than that. On 4G, I can get around sort of between 50 and 60 meg. So I've got an LTE external device which plugs straight into my firewall, and then I can set myself up with that load balancing or failover features. But we do have 4G, and we also have some 5G ones out now as well. As you know, there's a massive speed increase from 4G to 5G. So Stephen's come back and asked if you're using a dynamic DNS service and it fails over, just bear with me. If it fails, how is this resolved? So the actual LTE unit itself, you can actually register the dynamic DNS onto the LTE device. So it will actually publish the public-facing address that it's routing out via. So your dynamic DNS provider will be updated with whichever line is being active at that one time. So it does handle that quite well. And then, so I hope that answers yours, Steve. And Alan has come to me and asked me, are there two broadband lines then in this mix home use? So no, ultimately there's one broadband line which ultimately is say for instance 35 meg like my home. However, the kids and the two parents actually are reaching that capacity. So you introduce the LTE router with a SIM card, and that offers either as a failover or just strictly for the parents to be able to have uninterrupted internet connectivity. So yeah, obviously the reason that you've got two routers in that example I showed you, Alan, is ultimately because you've already got an original ISP router which is DSL. The actual LTE device doesn't support DSL. However, if you've got a cabled service, for instance, a Virgin Media service, and you can put their router into a modem mode, you can actually have it plugged directly into this unit, and just this being the public-facing device for both ISPs, being LTE and a fixed line. So let's see. So that's answered yours, Alan. And Jack's come back going, we're more interested in the VPN client software. Do you have your own, or do we use the built-in Windows client software? We need the VPN to be active before the clients log on to their Windows profile. So we do. So we use a software called Greenbow, which has sort of been relabeled for Zyxel. We've been using it for quite a number of years for both IPsec and SSL VPN. So you can typically put that in a startup script for it to terminate and connect automatically upon boot up. But when it comes to an L2TP, it is going to be a built-in Windows function. So it all depends which one you're actually going to be using at the time. And in regards to the actual annual cost of the ATP 200 license, Alan, if you want to contact the sales team by emailing sales@zyxel.co.uk, they'll be able to give you a better indication of that. Or my preference would be to actually go directly to distribution and see what prices they can get that at. But if you need anything from me, Alan, you can always email me at daniel.marsh@zyxel.co.uk. So Stephen's come back in, do you have a product that has a WAN 1 ADSL, WAN 2 Ethernet from say Sky Broadband, and WAN 3 LTE? So yeah, some of our VMG based routers do have the specification for ADSL and also WAN in there as well. But if you want to reach out to me after the webinar, Stephen, we can arrange a call and I can go through what we've got in our portfolio for the ADSL routers and discuss your requirements in a bit more detail rather than on a sort of open forum such as this. So Vicus has come back going, what is the client software called which allows to connect prior to log on? As I've said, it's a case of the software itself works. So what you'll have to do is have a look, see what scripting you can do within Windows to sort of terminate it. So it might be a bit of a trial and error, but the software you can download from our website And if you have a look at the handouts as well, it'll probably point you in the right direction of where it's located, as well as instructions on how to set that up as well. So let's see. So Jack did mention one about most of our 5-user client sites don't have a requirement for a server for such access, so querying whether a VPN will be required, of course. So yeah, I mean, if they don't have any internal resources, servers, phone servers, or anything like that, then potentially no, they might not need a VPN connection. So if they're using like hosted sort of services, Microsoft Teams for collaboration, Google Docs, for instance, for sharing documentation, then no, you wouldn't need a VPN. However, most places do store something locally. So as I say, it's a case-by-case requirement whether or not you need to have a VPN or not. I think that is probably about it. I think there's one here about sandboxing. So the sandboxing is actually on the ATP 200 end. So when it comes, so the information will come into it. And if you have a look on our Zyxel UK website as well at previous webinars, I've done quite a nice webinar on the ATP and how the sandboxing mechanism works. But yeah, as soon as the data comes into the ATP for the first time, the ATP will grab it, upload it to the sandboxing environment, let it through to the customer because you don't want to obviously delay the data transfer. The ATP in the meantime analyzes it within as I say, a matter of seconds, reports back to the administrator and on the log of the actual ATP going, right, this customer's just downloaded this file, it's malicious, therefore you need to do some quarantine procedures, get that computer directly off the network, and then sort of cleanse it. But I would definitely advise having a look at the previous webinars because it goes into it in a lot more detail and graphical as well, so it can really show you how to use it. So Alan, in regards to our strong Zyxel defense against ransomware, so we hook into sort of leading providers when it comes to ransomware and things like that. So I mean, we can take this offline. I can discuss with you exactly who we use, in what method we use in terms of the strength and things like that. I mean, a lot of vendors, they sometimes develop their own antivirus and security UTM functionality. We don't. We concentrate on what we're good on. That's build quality of our products, our Wi-Fi, our switching, and things like that. When it comes to the security aspect, we leverage from the industry leaders throughout all of it. So, like for instance, for the sandboxing, we use Last Line, and then with our content filtering and things like that, we use other providers as well. Again, I'll be able to discuss this more with you directly on a one-to-one sort of basis. So Jack, in regards to the macOS VPN license cost, so obviously that's from an SSL point of view. So in regards to the pricing, again, go directly through distribution, or if you give the sales team a call, we'll be able to give you a sort of online visible price. And if you're part of our partner program, you obviously get discount on that as well. And so it's definitely worth, if you're not already a partner, is sort of joining us as well, because you can start taking benefit of these discount levels. I think I've managed to sort of hit all of the questions that have been asked. Again, if I have missed any of the questions off and you want an answer, you can always email me at daniel.marsh@zyxel.co.uk. I'll be more than happy to sort of go through it, arrange a call with you, have a quick discussion. And again, if you've got any projects in the pipeline that you want to have some technical overlook, then by all means, give me a shout. So I'm just going to sort of point your attention to the presentation of what I've got on at the moment. So as some of you might be aware, our support campus is evolving day in, day out. Now, it is an absolute fantastic area to get information, how to set things up, potential problems that you're coming across, guides on how to set stuff up. It's even got a virtual lab as well, so you can actually have a look at some of the interfaces of some of our devices with a demo user, where you can actually just navigate around, see what it's capable of, even demonstrate it to your customers without having to physically buy it. Obviously, if you go to distribution, there are some distributors that might also do eval units as well, so that you can have a look at it from an evaluation point of view and either assess whether or not you need it or you don't, and then you can either purchase it or don't. Obviously, that's subject to terms and conditions with the distributor, so please query on that as well. And the warranty and services, so being able to have a look at the warranty terms and conditions, as well as being able to raise any RMA cases in case you do have a faulty piece of equipment that needs to be replaced. So again, we do a limited lifetime warranty on all of our products, and even if a product goes end of life, we'll continue to support it for five years after that. So obviously I've answered most of the sort of questions going through it anyway. In regards to the USGs and the ATPs, during the original first lockdown that we had, we actually released an emergency firmware upgrade, which actually increased the amount of SSL licenses on the USG and the ATP ranges listed on the screen. And you'll see what it was before and what it was afterwards. I have a confirmation that this firmware upgrade is going to stay, so the increase in licenses isn't for a specific period of time. So if you haven't already done so and you've got some of them devices out there, get them upgraded to the latest firmware. That means that ultimately it'll save you some money on any licenses for SSL VPNs. And then, as I say, moving forward, any new units will come with the uplifted amount on there. And in addition to that, we have got a little promotion on at the minute that if you purchase any USG 110, 210, or 310 devices, you get a 1-year extension for free. So this is on the UTM bundles. So the eligible products are listed there. You will all get a copy of this presentation, by the way, so you don't need to actually write it all down. You can just reference back to it later. But if you just go on our website and you'll see this sort of banner that's shown on this screen at the minute, there's a little form to fill in when you've got it, when you've got the unit, and then you'll basically, it'll go into our system and it'll automatically apply the 1-year license extension to your device. So that really concludes today's webinar. So all I can say is thank you for joining me today. I know obviously not everybody finds webinars very interesting. I like to think that this one touches on the interest strings a little bit more because it's actually targeting something that potentially is a problem for quite a lot of us at the moment. It's definitely something I've incorporated into my home network since the increase in demand at home. So I'd just like to thank you all for coming. Again, we do a lot of webinars. We've got on-demand webinars as well that you can look back on. But if you need anything, again, you can ring me on the office line, ask to get put through to me or any of the team, or you can email me at daniel.marsh@zyxel.co.uk. So have a good rest of your day, everybody, and thank you again for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye.